Good morning. I'm Atty. Karen Jimeno, a former doctor and health secretary, a congresswoman who's no stranger to controversy, takes today's spotlight here at the forefront. Iloilo 1st District Congresswoman Janette Garin has worn many hats. Now as a House Deputy Majority Leader helping shape national policies, her career has spanned public health milestones and some of the most debated moments in political memory. What drives her to stay in the arena despite the scrutiny and shifting political tides? With us this morning is the House Deputy Majority Leader and Representative of Iloilo's 1st District, Congresswoman Janette Garin. Good morning, Congresswoman Janette.
Good morning, Atty. Karen, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, first let's talk about you being elected as Deputy Speaker in the 20th Congress. How does being re-elected mean to you? You were already elected years ago, I believe in the 17th Congress as well. Is that correct?
I was Senior Deputy Majority Leader, the post that Congressman Sandro Marcos held before.
So you've held many high positions in Congress as well. So sa ngayon po, ano ang magiging priority mo as Deputy Minority, what do you call this, right?
As Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Majority Leader.
So for the 20th Congress, I was elected as Deputy Speaker. And it's very heartwarming because it's a recognition of how you have worked for and in Congress.
What's the difference between Deputy Speaker and now Deputy Majority Leader?
So it's basically the other way around. So as Deputy Speaker, you are in place for every situation that the Speaker is not available. You preside over sessions, and if there are activities needing a representation of the Speaker and he is not available, then you are, I'm not sure if, I think for this Congress we will also have sectoral representative. The Deputy Majority Leader, on the other hand, serves as a Vice Chair of the Committee on Rules. And I've been a member of the Committee on Rules since I became a member of Congress. And this is my 6th term, basically the 3rd term, my last term on my 2nd round.
Is it your last term for the 20th Congress? Nakatatlong term na po ba kayo?
Pangatlo ko ito ngayon for the 2nd round.
Naisip niyo na po ba sinong papalit sa inyo for the next cycle ng election?
Well, it depends on our political leaders down the ground and of course, whoever will be acceptable to the group.
But sa family niyo po wala pang usapan because your husband, former Congressman Richard Garin, also occupied the same post.
Yes, yeah. When I became a member of Pinoy's cabinet, he became the congressman.
And right now, we have Sandro Marcos, who I believe broke a record for being the youngest majority leader. What was your reaction when he became the majority leader? So tama-tama po, ngayon deputy ka niya, no?
So
Is that correct?
I'm the deputy of the Speaker.
You're a deputy speaker. Okay,
Yeah.
nalilito na sa rule. So right now, you're deputy
So basically,
speaker.
you have the Speaker,
Yeah.
and then you have the deputy speakers, and then, of course, the most important committee is the Committee on Rules, and the chairman is the Majority Leader.
Okay.
And the Majority Leader would have a Senior Deputy Majority Leader, and then a few Majority Leaders, and then Assistant Majority Leaders. So the Assistant Majority Leaders are members of the Committee on Rules, while the Deputy Majority Leaders are Vice Chairman of the Committee on Rules.
Okay, and right now, what is your reaction to Sandro Marcos being the majority leader?
It's not surprising because even when he was not yet congressman, you can sense politics in his blood. The interest is there. The willingness to learn is there. Marami kasi ang hindi nakakaalam. Many do not know that he was working in Congress as a congressional staff before he became a congressman. I think it was not planned, but he was just there, coming fresh from university. He wanted to be exposed, and he wanted to know the ins and outs of legislation. Moreover, he wanted to feel how is it to work not as a congressman, but as a staff, and where are the offices, ano ba talaga yung mga ginagawa ng mga tao sa baba. And that's why before we were surprised when he would tell us, no, there's an office in this area. Saan ba banda yun? dito, dito, dito. And then we realized because he was delivering all these letters.
Before, when he was
before.
still working
When he was a staff in Congress.
Oh, okay. And ngayon po, do you think that he would do a good job as majority leader, even if he's not a lawyer, considering the position is being a chairman of the rules?
Well, definitely, because I've been a member of the Committee on Rules way back, I think since 2000, since I became congressman. I think it was 2004. I started as a deputized member, and then then a deputy majority leader, a senior deputy majority leader. But when I was senior deputy majority leader, napaka-konti lang. I think that we only had 3 or 4 deputy speakers. Yeah, initially 3. And then the former President Pinoy was added, they became 4. And during that time, I was managing the firm. I'm not a lawyer. And Sandro is also not a lawyer. You really don't need to be a lawyer to be the chairman of the Committee on Rules. You need experience. You need the gift of how to play around diplomatically, how to bargain in terms of making sure that your position, the main core of your position, is not sacrificed.
And you think Congressman Sandro has those qualities right
We
now?
saw him as senior deputy majority leader during the 19th Congress. And nakita mo like, he knows when to approach, he knows when not to approach, he knows when to talk to a member and bargain at paano, saan, at kailan.
Okay, so just to clarify, because I introduced you earlier as Deputy Majority Leader, you're now Deputy Speaker.
Yeah.
Okay,
of course,
so,
thanks to my colleagues in the 20th Congress and of course my the leadership in Partido Lakas that I belong to.
And as Deputy Speaker, do you have any priorities for the 20th Congress?
Well, I will be there to assist the Speaker in all the tasks that will be assigned to me. And of course, presiding and making sure that we abide with the timelines. Kasi minsan ang hirap na people are expecting, but then Congress fails to pass it. So that's something that we intend not to do. Like the smooth deliberation, but open deliberation in Congress is something that we are really looking forward to. But of course, on top of that, I would focus on health, social services, MSMEs, education, at murang pagkain.
Okay, yun, mga priorities lahat yan for social welfare.
Yes.
And Congresswoman Janette, why is it that historically may mga Congress tayo na maraming speakers? In the 18th Congress, umabot sa 14 deputy speakers. And then 20th Congress, right now, 10 elected deputy speakers. But
Well, there was
ano
even a
bang
time that it
nagdedetermine?
became 33. Kaya,
33?
Yeah. Kaya hindi maganda, no? Because, okay, positions in the House, specifically leadership position, syempre, pinag-aagawan yan. And sometimes what happens, it becomes a bargaining tool. And mahirap kasi kapag ikaw ay leader and then you're a people pleaser na pinagbibigyan mo na lang lahat, kasi hindi na yan makapagtrabaho. With power comes accountability, and with position comes responsibility. So it's quite good. Actually, the reforms started way back in 2022 when the deputy speakers from a huge number of 30 plus was reduced to 9. Initially 8, and then it became 9. It's 10 because there's a senior deputy speaker.
And ngayon po, do you think that's the ideal number? Mga around 10 lang? Because you said
9.
33, that's too much.
Yeah.
So 9
That's-
including a
Because
senior.
before it was 3 plus 1. It was Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and NCR. But then it was very difficult because there are already a lot of issues. There are a lot of deliberations on the floor, in the committee rooms, kasi hindi lang naman dun eh. And you need the participation of the leaders of the House. And there are now a lot of issues that the Speaker has to go to, and he needs a Deputy Speaker to replace him. So marami na yan. So kailangan na somehow it has become almost like regional level, but there are sectoral representations. Somebody has to be there representing the women, representing it's like cluster, it's like the cabinet cluster.
May additional benefits po ba ang mga deputy speakers, deputy majority leaders for that additional post that they get?
Yes, for more additional work, then you get additional perks. And it's not really perks because these are the support staff that will help you in your office. So you get to have more researchers, probably an additional lawyer in your office. And on top of that, since you have membership in, you're technically a member of all committees, then your voting power in all committees goes with your position.
There were speculations before na kaya daw madaming deputy speakers, it's to prepare for a federalist form of government. Would you know if that's true? And now that we've reduced the number of speakers again, meron pa rin bang
I think
usapan
it's not
for...
true. It was just a reason. But basically, it was more of political accommodation. Para bang positions were dangled, and it was not good because it created a chaotic process inside. Parang nawalan din ng value yung position.
Yeah, because it is very prestigious to be deputy speaker. But kung marami na, people were
Not
saying
only
before
that,
na
it's
parang...
also eating up the budget. Because if you have a lot of deputy speakers, let's say you have 30 plus deputy speakers, and you have to provide each deputy speaker an office. So it becomes an additional expense. You have to provide every deputy speaker a complement staff. And then marami yun. With that goes the expenses of how you operate the office, when you travel, when you go around. And in this Congress, even in the 19th Congress, we were being told we really have to reduce it. Kasi ang sinasabi nga ng iba, bakit kailangang bawasan? Ganun na lang marami para wala nang masaktan. Kasi lahat gusto ng posisyon.
Marami ring ma-accommodate, yeah.
But then, that will eat up the budget of Congress. And you can see ngayon, with climate change, you have a lot of flooding, typhoon, may mga sakuna right and left. A huge portion of the budget of Congress is being used for feeding programs in evacuation centers, immediate response in terms of calamity, mobilizing people, and hiring additional people who can really do research, feel the pulse of the people, and go around together with other executive agencies so that we can maximize the power of Congress, and that is our oversight powers. So mas kailangan na magamit yan doon.
Understandable. Pero wala na po bang usapan na magkaroon pa tayo ng federal form of government or parliamentary type of government?
Well, the issue in charter change is still being discussed kasi talagang pumapasok yan, but not really on a new form of government. There are proposals to make the senators sectoral, no? Parang dagdagan ang Senado kasi nga napaka-konti nila. If we look at the balance, we need to pass a lot of laws. There are national laws, there are local laws, but all of this pagka dumarating sa Senado, talagang hindi natatapos, nabibinbin. Kasi kulang na kulang sila. That's why many of the senators would hold a lot of chairmanship. Okay, so the sectoral representation of members of Senate and additional senators are being discussed. However, me personally, we're more keen on the fact that if we talk about charter change, it should be on the economic side. Let's say logistics.
Yeah.
Dapat kasi Filipino-owned. Pero kapag ikaw naman nagnenegosyo ng logistics, like say shipping, and you're just in the Philippines, you're a Filipino company, the scope of your business is small. So hindi ka makakabigay ng magandang presyo. Kaya nga kung tingnan mo,
pati yung capital nyo, limited lang.
Limited din.
Yeah.
So what we have now is that we have a lot of goods being imported. And importing them, let's say, from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, or even from the US, in Europe, and in China, in Vietnam, lahat ito, napakamura nung cost of bringing them to the Philippines. But within the Philippines, it's very expensive. And that is passed on to every field. And then IT, connectivity.
But this would require a charter change to change that.
Yes, we need to change the Constitution. That's why changing the Constitution and specifically targeting education, connectivity, IT, and even the logistical side, those are very important matters that should be nakahon eh.
What about land ownership po? It's still a 60-40 requirement, but it is a big obstacle for corporations, foreign corporations sometimes when they're setting up here.
Yes, because when they invest, they would like to invest on the property. I mean, you put up like a multi-billion property on a land that is not yours. It gives them shivers. Siyempre matatakot ang negosyante niyan kasi pag nagloko yung may-ari ng lupa, kasama doon.
And they're forced to find a local partner that they can trust. No?
And that's a problem because sometimes the local partner would say, "Oh, I'm your partner because I'm a Filipino," but without a contribution in terms of financial contribution and business or technical contribution. So, nagiging mahal yun.
Yeah. So, palagay niyo po, may pag-asa pa ba ang charter change?
With more information, dissemination to the general public, meron. Kasi even in agriculture, tama naman, yung lupa sa Pilipino pa rin. But it's very difficult for us to compete with our neighboring countries.
Yeah.
Magkano ang kamote sa Vietnam, sa Korea, sa Japan, sa China? Napakasarap pa. No? Ang laki ng difference. Sa atin, mas mahal yung kamote. Pero mas iba yung lasa ng kamote natin.
So really, a lot of the economic provisions needs to be addressed.
Yes.
You criticized lawmakers who were aiming for the speakership for the 20th Congress, saying that they might just be using it as a strategy to bargain for other powerful positions in Congress. What did you mean by that?
Well, it's not really a direct criticism to anybody, but there were a lot of news reports na, ito may nag-i-interest, ito may tatakbo, without naming names. No? Traditionally, this has become like a bargaining tool, a bargaining chip in Congress na, ako, marami akong dala. If you want to, if you want me to back out from the speakership fight, then give me a prestigious post. And while that practice is something that I respect, it's not really that healthy when it comes to legislation and working. Because there are occasions that somebody who bargains by virtue of, using a group, technically mahirap kasi yung ibang mga congressman, hindi naman nila naiintindihan na nagagamit na sila. And then, the qualified members of Congress who are being used in that group ay naiiwan. Kasi of course, when you bargain and when you bring this group of congressmen behind you as your group, you get the position, you get the perk, whatever juicy post or juicy chairmanship you will get. But in exchange for your colleagues being left behind.
Ngayon po ba, would you say, natigil na yung ganyang practice? Or...
Well, what's happening now is it's by political party. So there are allocations of certain committee chairmanship for each political party commensurate to the members, to the number of members of that political party. And that includes deputy speaker. Parang each political party will have a deputy speaker representing the interest of the members of that party, and that transcends to their constituencies. And a few seats will be that of the choice, not the choice of the leadership and the majority members in Congress. So, if it's by political party, sila-sila yung nag-uusap, nagkakaroon ng representation in all aspects.
Do you believe in the ability of Speaker Martin Romualdez to do well in leading the 20th Congress?
He has proven it already. So, if you see, like, initially I was surprised when I saw the 209, I thought it was 291. Pero meron pa palang pirma sa likod. I think 292 or 293. Many might not believe this. Kasi ang problema, karamihan nung nakikita ng tao sa labas, yung paninira. Pero kami kasi sa loob, alam mo, he's being a consensus builder. He's being a very systematic person that he was able to organize staff na kunyari, may bagyo. Yung mga congressman, although we are legislators, pagdating sa distrito, lalapitan ka ng tao eh. Nakikita mo, naaanod yung mga bahay, nasisira. When you go to the department, kanya-kanyang punta ng department, the secretary is also busy with typhoon response. So wala kang mapuntahan. But then the speaker, Martin Romualdez, came up with a complete complement of staff na bawat region meron ka ng tatawagang staff, tao. And hindi pwedeng hindi mag-facilitate yon kasi namomonitor ni Speaker sa computer.
So may tracker siya.
May tracker.
So may system siya. Okay.
And then aside from that, hindi ka pwedeng hingi ng hingi tapos wala ka palang ginagawa. Kasi even if you are favored, very close to the Speaker, it's all fair when it comes to allocation of resources. Dahil kapag hindi mo naman ginagamit and you have a poor utilization, he will directly tell you na medyo malambing pa na, uy, gamitin mo naman muna yung pondo. Huwag
so
ka na
parang
munang-
DBM din siya sa
Parang-
Congress. So, kasi di ba they track that yung
They will call,
utilization, absorption rate.
Yeah, he will call the cabinet secretary or let's say, oh, ito si Janet, humihingi ng mga pang-ayuda dun sa mga natamaan ng bagyo, baka naman pwedeng mabigyan dyan. Pero makikita mo, there's an allocation, pero may asterisk yan, nakalagay diyan, hold. Galing din yan sa Speaker's office until the existing budget are fully utilized. So what he wants is that there's immediate action na ramdam ng tao. Hindi yung Speaker na, o sige, hintay muna kayo lahat kasi dapat ako ang makita, ako ang humarap, ako ang magresponde. So empowering each congressman in each congressional district and even the party list members pave way for many of the members to believe in his leadership.
And are you confident that Speaker Martin will be able to finish his term as Speaker for this 20th Congress?
Definitely. No, definitely. Of course, if there's a change in president, there would be change in organization. But in this case, hindi naman nawawala no, yung mga challenges. But when you see the insides of how they are managing, especially in Congress, magugulat ka kasi dun sa, the technology that they have in place. Hindi na yung tao, let's say for medical assistance program, then you can make calls, the guarantee letter will be printed anywhere, and alam na yung charging, alam na kung sino yung nagpe-perform, sino yung hindi. And moreover, syempre, mahirap gumalaw kung yung iyong staff, from the chief of staff down to the lowest member of your office, of your congressional office, mahirap kung hindi nila alam. The Speaker's office has paved way for continuous enhancement of their professionalism and their capability. Kapag nagbre-break ang Congress, dati-rate, talagang walang trabaho. Pero ngayon, kapag nagbre-break ang Congress, kailangan mag-aral ng mga staff.
Meron silang training na institutionalize sa loob.
Yes, na-institutionalize sa loob. So, parang ikaw, mahihiya ka rin na maglagay ng hindi ganun ka-competent na chief of staff. So,
At wala na ba yung mga kamag-anak na ginagamit as their own employees, their own chief of staff?
Na-minimize. Dati-rati kasi gano'n, na parang, lahat ng nandiyan dyan yung mga kamag-anak. Pero meron naman kasing iba, nilalagay nila yung kamag-anak nila kasi it's a position of trust at nasanay at kilala yung mga tao.
At marunong naman.
At marunong, oo. In this case, kapag hindi marunong, medyo mahihiya ka kasi dun sa meeting, malalaman And it's not just like a one-way lecture. It's an interactive training. And especially with AI, with technology, with social media, lahat yon.
Well, when you said that Speaker Martin Romualdez is a consensus builder, this seems to go against what Congressman Duke Frasco came out with in his official statement before, that he was not supporting Speaker Martin because we need someone that's unifying in Congress. Would you know the backstory on that? Bakit nagkaroon-garong statement? Because people perceive them to be allies, di ba? Like 2022 elections.
Duke Frasco is a friend. That's why we were all surprised by his statement. And I am very much aware that Congressman Duke Frasco was made Deputy Speaker in the 19th Congress because of Speaker Martin. Kasi hindi kasi siya, it was not a party allocation. Partido kasi ni Duke is NUP. So bawat partido meron kang allocation ng isang Deputy Speaker. So I believe the allocation of NUP was being given to Congressman Puno. And Congressman Puno. NUP si Duke. So it was like an extra allocation given, basically maybe a favor for him to prove his worth as Deputy Speaker. So nagulat kami when he was saying things like this because he was part of the leadership. Although hindi nga lang siya palaging nakikita sa mga activities and meetings in Congress and even hearings in Murang Pagkain because I think he was also with the secretary, with Secretary Cristina Frasco, every time she travels. And not all the time siguro, I'm not sure. But what we hear is kailangan niyang samahan yung kanyang asawa, who is a member of the cabinet. So hindi siya masyado nakikita doon sa Congress. In terms of inside meetings and work as Deputy Speaker. That is why it got the surprise of my life. And he started saying that, oh, we need somebody to unite Congress. Siguro nagkaroon ng intrigahan. And I actually personally talked to Duke. Sabi ko, Duke, anong nangyari? Kasi as much as possible, maganda yung wala kang kaaway. And of course, he was saying like he heard like there are some people outside Congress who are disgruntled with the Speaker. And siguro naisip niya to put himself up for the position. On the contrary, magkaiba kasi yung mga tao iba-iba yung mga tao. On the contrary, what I would have done if I was in his position as part of the leadership is to go to the Speaker and say, oh Speaker, meron daw mga hindi kontento. And then pinpoint the issues. And sige Speaker, hanapan natin to ng solution. Because when you do that, makikita mo, totoo ba o hindi ba totoo? Mahirap kasi baka, alam mo yun, mahirap na makuryente.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oo. So ngayon po, does Duke Frasco have any post, like position in terms of the deputy speakerships, or would you know what committee?
No, because NUP, the party where he belongs to, did not have him as a choice, even the previous Congress. So, well, if the Speaker, Martin Romualdez, will give one slot for him, ang tanong nga, sino yung tatanggalin? Kasi stricto yung 19th Congress, pero mas stricto ngayon. No? Even Kong Sandro was saying, oh, lahat ng papasok sa Committee on Rules, dapat magtatrabaho kayo. So, ganun din, no? May mga kanya-kanya kaming tasks. So, with Duke always accompanying Cristina in many of the events, it becomes difficult for him to perform his task inside Congress. And andun din kasi yung, you know, I've been a member of the Committee on Rules since I became a member of Congress. Matrabaho siya. You have to be available 24/7.
Yeah. And sa fourth State of the Nation address ni President Bongbong Marcos, he mentioned additional benefits for people under PhilHealth coverage. What's your take on the zero health budget of the PhilHealth in the 2025 General Appropriations Act? But before you answer this question, we'll have to take a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. Congresswoman Janette, the President in his fourth State of the Nation address talked about additional benefits that are covered under PhilHealth. What's your take on the zero budget of PhilHealth in the 2025 General Appropriations Act?
The new moves and thrust of PhilHealth is really laudable. No? And we have to commend Undersecretary Dr. Edwin Mercado in his leadership in PhilHealth now. Kasi alam niya Alam niya yung trabaho when he was in private practice, when he was still involved in hospital operations. Alam niyang problema. And that's the difference when you get somebody in a leadership position or in a managerial or a powerful position na alam yung nangyayari galing sa baba. So that's very laudable because when I became chairman of PhilHealth, by virtue of my being Secretary of Health, madali lang naman yon, parang I think 1.5 years. But then we were busy with doing away with unnecessary packages and putting in the correct packages. So, Dr. Edwin Mercado is in the right track. Kasi nga nung naabutan ko before, may package ng wart removal. Pinatanggal ko yon kasi sayang yon. And then many of the packages like renal transplant, yung sa bypass, yung cabbage, were limited to 1 or 2 hospitals. And that was difficult for our, because health should be available, accessible, and affordable. The zero balance billing is timely, no? Except for the LGU hospitals who might have a hard time coping up with this. Because the life of LGU hospitals is also the reimbursement from PhilHealth. But we also need to make sure, because we placed metrics before, during the administration of former President Noynoy Aquino, may metrics yung mga hospital. I remember it was 5. This is a USAID-funded metric based performance for allocation of resources. So it was cleanliness, available of medicines, filling up of plantilla positions. Kasi yung iba, ang dami-daming bakante, ang dami-dami namang applicant, ginagawa nilang savings. And then availability of ancillary machines and procedures. Kasi yung iba palaging sira ang machine. And bed occupancy. So if we have this zero balance billing, it should be partnered, and that is where the oversight powers of Congress will be exercised. Dapat yung mga ospital ng gobyerno, hindi pwedeng maraming bakanting beds kung marami naman yung pasyente. Hindi pwedeng madumi. No? Kasi mahirap yung madumi, ang daming sakit dyan. Yeah. Hindi pwedeng palaging walang stock ng gamot, and then patients are being forced to buy outside.
So yung zero balance billing po, matutupad po ba yan ng PhilHealth? I interviewed Professor Malutikia dung post-SONA coverage, and she said yung karamihan, she found out from PhilHealth dahil nakasabay niya raw yung isang taga-PhilHealth sa interview rin ng post-SONA. She said that yung mga na-announce daw ni Presidente are just plans pa lang, hindi pa actual projects that are for rollout. Is that something that we can expect already?
The zero balance billing
year
is not just purely PhilHealth. Kasi ang mga hospital, may pondo yon. They get an allocation of the Medical Assistance Program Fund, which later on became MAIP, and now it's MAIFIP. This was a program started during my time. I crafted all the guidelines. So ginawa ko yung programa nyo, pinalitan lang, no, nalagyan lang, nasama lang siya doon sa malasakit. But the main intention is that the bill that will not be covered by PhilHealth will be covered by DOH to reduce the out-of-pocket expenditures unless you occupy a suite room or a private room. Kasi yung ating government hospitals, 10 to 30% of that actually have private rooms. If you're in a private room, then it's not zero balance billing. You have to pay commensurate to the fees kasi may kaya yan eh.
Yeah.
But for those in the wards or semi-private rooms, or even those in the private room, by virtue of their medical condition, we'll have zero balance billing. So yung hospital may income kasi yan.
For PhilHealth na covered po, they can expect that na, yung zero balance
Yung
billing.
PhilHealth, yes, but it's like a combination of many funds. So siguro ang nakita ni Malu is akala niya PhilHealth lang. No, you have PhilHealth, you have the Medical Assistance Program Fund going to the hospital from the DOH, and there are a lot of infusion and even the income of the hospital.
And for this 2025 budget, meron na po bang makukuha ang PhilHealth, or is it still under dispute na yung na-allocate sa kanila sa GAA ay talagang zero?
I believe meron, no? Meron. Ang nangyari lang kasi before, kaya naging zero, siguro nairita yung lahat when it was being shown that, how much was that? I think 400, I forgot the actual amount, no? But you have billions of people, billions of money being invested. So hindi nila mailabas. So ilang taon, parang, syempre, kumikita yung pera doon. Yun naman yung kanilang thrust. But then on a healthcare perspective, you want the money of PhilHealth to earn, but not a huge bulk na nasasakripisyo na ngayon. And then yung admin cost, they were able to reduce admin cost. Bottom line is that the leadership of the current PhilHealth is in the right track.
At yung mga additional benefits din po for dialysis, cancer, and yung even for PWDs, maaasahan na po ba yan ng PhilHealth members? Yes,
kaya siya. Even during my time, nakita namin na kaya. The only problem there before was that a huge chunk of money was going to fraud. So kapag yung
anong
pera,
type of fraud po?
Okay, ghost patients, non-existent patients, non-existing illnesses. Meron yung mga ina-admit daw pero hindi naman yung patient seeking, no? Na yung maghahanap ng mga pasyente pero hindi naman pipiliting i-admit. Okay, what we discovered before was that naghahakot selected hospitals and selected clinics. Naghahakot ng mga pasyente, i-check up, bibigyan yung pasyente ng 500 pesos na, o sige, ito, pambili mo ng whatever. Pero actually, what was being done is that they were making a reimbursement from PhilHealth na, o ito, may pneumonia. So we had to put a lot of measures in place. Number one, dapat may findings sa x-ray. At kapag pneumonia, hindi naman pwedeng pumunta ka lang, natulog ka lang sandali. Wala na, paggising mo, dinischarge ka na without any medication. But you get the complete package.
So ang nag-fraud po during this time are the hospitals?
It was a combination of hospitals and practitioners. Of course, may mga kasamahan sa loob yan. Kasi hindi naman mangyayari yun.
How long ago niyo po na-discover yung ganitong fraud practice?
I was still a board member in the province of Iloilo when we saw this cataract operations naman yun. That's how I met the Philippine Academy of Ophthalmologists under Dr. Mingita Padilla during that time. And we worked together. When I became a member of Congress, akala namin natapos na yun. Lumala pala. No? So, then former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo asked me, and I showed her the step-by-step process of how fraud was being committed and how much the government was losing. Naayos na yon. And later on, bumalik na naman. So when I became the Secretary of Health, yun na yung aking one of the first major tasks that we do, cleansing PhilHealth. Unfortunately, when I left office, there were 8 memos that we crafted to curb fraud. Andun na yung check and balance. But when I left office, all of this were overturned by Secretary Ubial. So bumalik ulit, lumala ulit. And now ngayon, ginagawa na ni Dr. Edwin Mercado, the President of PhilHealth, yung reforms
So,
na kailangan.
si Sec. Ted Herbosa po ba, as someone naman from, because you initiated this when you were Secretary of Health, is he also helping support, curb all of these fraudulent practices?
When I was Secretary of Health, not really. But now I know it's Dr. Edwin Mercado doing
Na
that.
nagde-lead na. Okay.
So maybe the support is there, no? Kasi hindi ko alam yung tasking nila ngayon.
Yes. And yung charges po against you relating to the Dengvaxia issue were dropped by the DOJ back in January 2025. But immediately after that, may nag-file na naman, binubuhay yung case. What is the status of that case for, I think it was reckless imprudence?
It's the same thing na namatay
oo.
daw. But you will be surprised, nagulat din kami because these patients all died of COVID. So yung mga namatay sa COVID, sinabi naman nila, namatay yan sa bakuna. And then I'm not even part of the vaccination program, except on the private side. So what we can see here is this is a movement of the anti-vaccine group. Namayagpag kasi ang fake news during the previous administration. Unfortunately, siguro hindi naman yun sadya. But when they opened their doors to all these fake experts and fake autopsies, and what made it worse is that a government agency was empowered, and this is the Public Attorney's Office, na ang daming magagaling mga abogado doon. Ang dami nang nagagawa dapat ng mga tao sa baba. Pero nag-focus sa anti-vaccine campaign si Persida. And of course, she wanted to build an office for ERFE. Kasi nga hindi naman talaga, forensic medicine is not part of the jurisdiction of the Public Attorney's Office. So pinilit nila i-create yung office na yon. And we were checking on DBM. I think there was an allocation of around 2 billion for supplies, for creation of an office. Technically, pinondohan ng gobyerno yung ambulance chasing para habulin yung mga doktor at mga scientists.
In relation to the dengue vaccine?
Using Dengvaxia, kasi napapaniwala yung tao and it was difficult to laymanize medical terms. And there was no platform for us to speak up because every time we speak up, natatakpan kami. No? And pinuputol-putol nga. Like, ang daming, how do you call that? Yung interviews namin parang puputulin, nakasplice,
yeah.
na umamin daw. But then, we know that our conscience are clear, we did nothing wrong, and now, kaya nga dati-rate, talagang nananawagan kami na ilagay na siya sa korte. But what the Public Attorney's Office was doing and the prosecutors was doing, they were delaying and delaying and delaying it. Kasi pag nasa korte, unang-una, makikita mo fake yung autopsies. Because ERFE is not a pathologist. Even the claimed training that he has in forensic medicine is questionable. And makikita mo rin doon, yung iba na nagclaim na parents, nakikita namin, hindi naman talaga tugma dun sa profile ng parents ng kabataan. So, it was...
Were you able to trace eventually? Ano ba yung pinagmulan nun? Bakit
Kasi yung iba,
nabuhay tong controversy na to?
Well, basically, okay, we had to start with the issue in science. Sa siyensya kasi, sa medisina, meron yung mga practitioners of natural medicine and meron naman yung who practice both, the Western and the natural medicine. So, meron niyang paulit-ulit na grupo na lumalapit that they believe in treating patients, you only have to make advocacies. And they were pushing for a budget during Pinoy administration. Kaya lang, napakahirap naman magpondo ng billion-billion just for advocacy. Na because that will be tantamount to fraud. Again, it will be open to a lot of fraud. Moving forward, I think ang naging challenge sa amin, yung mga scientists and real doctors, you are confined in the hospitals, in your patients, in the laboratories. Hindi mo sukat akalain na magiging fake news. Andun kasi yung very strong anti-vaccine sentiment. And later on, it became, una kasi political siya. It was actually a tool to get back at the former president. Later on, sinakyan na siya nung anti-vaccine group, sinakyan na siya. May grupo yan, and remember in Senate, they kept on saying, oh, that's bad science. They don't believe in the figures. They don't believe that patients are dying from dengue.
So in short po, ang pinanggalingan you believe is politika na pinopoliticize
Yes,
noon
it
si
started
former
with
president.
people trying to get back at the former president dahil yung kanyang tuwid na daan program, marami siyang nasagasaan. And then we were being made as instruments kasi nga, syempre, hinahanapan siya ng mali. Moving forward, sinakyan siya ngayon ng mga anti-vaccine, yung mga naturalists, so that it paved way for the universal healthcare law having killer provisions. Yung sinabing hindi natapos ang trial, and the former Secretary Herbosa during that time, galit din kay Pinoy. Sinasabi niya na, oh, hindi natapos ang trial. Pero sa totoo, tapos eh.
So you're confident po this case will get dismissed? Yung mga bagong cases na final nitong January 2025?
Definitely, because these patients died of COVID. I'm not even sure if they were vaccinated. Because the age does not match. Parang, alam kasi nila yung mga doktor hindi exposed dun sa legal battles. So you put scientists and doctors and experts in one corner where they have to spend a lot for legal fees. And now they can't do their work. So that paves way for many fake news and infodemic na mamayagpag.
Well, Congresswoman Janette, as someone with both legislative and executive experience, you were also a cabinet secretary before. How do you assess President Marcos's administration's overall health policy? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. Congresswoman Janette, as someone with both political, legislative, and executive experience, how do you assess President Marcos's administration's overall health policy?
When it comes to policies and directions, napakaganda, no? He's putting vaccination as a priority, where protection is really better than cure. Andun yung pag-allocate ng resources sa health. Andun yung pag-maximize, making health available, accessible, affordable dun sa baba. Now, those are the policies. However, to make sure that these policies will transcend into services na mararamdaman ng taong bayan, the Department of Health should be more aggressive. Kasi, I mean, they are all my friends, pero ang bagal ng serbisyo. We have hospitals like in my district, meron doon isang ospital na punong-puno, talagang kailangan na ng bagong building. Nabigyan siya ng allocation na 155 million. But it took the Department of Health forever. Hanggang nung lumabas na yung kanilang plano na napirmahan, it was 2.5 years. The money has already been reverted. So, sayang yung magagandang policies if it will not transcend to actual and real services. It should not just be lip service. The Department of Health should walk the talk. And we cannot have stockouts of medicines, vaccine, especially cancer drugs, TB drugs. Ang daming palaging walang stock. So, internally, the central office should act more prudently. Palagi nilang isipin yung bagong Pilipinas na dapat serbisyo agad, dapat mabilis, dapat hindi yung teka-teka bukas na, no.
Yeah, and you really have insights as a doctor as well. So, now that you mentioned yung mabagal na aksyon ng Department of Health, what are your thoughts on Secretary Ted Herbosa retaining his post as or the DOH portfolio after President Bongbong Marcos called for courtesy resignations of all cabinet members back in May?
I believe it's not only for Secretary Herbosa, but for all other
Yes,
members
for
of
all
the cabinet.
yes.
Yeah, kasi if you remember, you're also part of many administrations. Meron parang war room, may yardsticks kami nun eh. Like if you cannot accomplish this, na principal's office ka dun sa
Pinapatawag
Malacanang.
kayo
Yes,
dati. Ganun po
pinapatawag.
ba si President Pinoy?
Yeah, tsaka pag hindi mo nahihit or yung utilization, talagang hindi ka bibitiwan, aaraw-arawin ka. So, kami naman sa bawat departamento, talagang nagpo-push ka. No? So, I believe when the President reappointed members of the cabinet, including Secretary Herbosa, it's like a call to action. Parang wag mong sayangin yung binigay sa'yo na another chance of proving to the people that a secretary should not just be a secretary in words. You should be a secretary in action where you have to make a difference. Hindi yung sa salita lang, kundi dapat ramdam ng taong bayan. So, hindi kasi justifiable, no? When we talk about health equity and President Bongbong Marcos keeps on pushing for health equity, na kung ano ang nararamdaman ng mayayaman, ay dapat meron yung mahihirap. So, hindi pwedeng may bakuna ngayon, tapos wala na naman. Dapat
so kailangan yung continuity
kasi
po.
palaging nagka-catch up. Lumaki na yung dapat 1.5, 2.5, 3.5 months old. Biglang after the first dose, walang stock. Lumaki na yung bata, hahanapin mo na 2 years old or 1 year old.
Hindi na effective yun masyado. Oo.
It's still effective, but then yung window na unprotected yung bata at yung mga mahahawaan, flu vaccine, darating siya, katapusan na ng taon. Dapat June, July, start na yan kasi yun yung talagang months na iproprotect natin ng health workers and senior citizens.
Congresswoman Janette, sayang ang bilis ng oras. Ang dami natin pwedeng pag-usapan. But for now, because maraming issues there, right now, we want to ask you some of the controversial issues, and then you'll have a few minutes to give your answer because we're running out of time. So first, let's talk about you being vocal about the country's COVID-19 loans. Do you believe there was serious mismanagement in the previous administration?
Yes, kasi ang daming inutang na hindi naman dapat inutang. Ang daming ginastusan na hindi naman dapat ginastusan. At napakamahal ng mga pinambibili natin.
At the time, what do you mean yung mahal? Yung mga PPEs, protective equipment?
What I saw, basically, testing kits. At ang dami mong, you are in a pandemic. Merong formula kasi ang WHO on how to compute COVID testing. Bakit? Sa buong mundo, tayo ang pinakamahal. It was 10,800 per test. Ilang beses ka magpapatest. And the policies were all very much delayed compared to other countries. It was 2,000 to 2,500 pesos in all our Asian neighboring countries.
Do you believe the unpaid benefits of healthcare workers during the pandemic, that happened ba na meron talagang mga unpaid? And if so, can this still be rectified?
Yes, but the problem is, gumawa ng mga batas, gumawa ng mga promise na walang accompanying budget. So you cannot blame the Department of Health for that. Even DBM, kasi ang daming promise, private and government, parang nakalimang trans ng allowances and salaries. Parang sumobra na ng dami, pero wala namang pondo. So saan nila kukunin yon? So that's the difference. Kagaya rin yan nung sinasabi natin sa Kongreso, dapat pagbigyan lahat mag-deputy speaker, pero actually, mauubos ang pondo sa mga posisyon, wala na sa serbisyo.
What's your response to new complaints regarding Dengvaxia-related charges against you? Kanina you mentioned nga, this was politically driven. So, ano po yung message nyo dun sa mga continuously binubuhay itong issue na to?
Well, the problem with the one heading them, no? Yung pinondohan ng nakaraang gobyerno para habulin kaming mga doktor at scientist, nag-promise kasi sila ng monetary rewards. Kaya syempre, pag sinabihan mo, ito, example, makakuha ka ng 5 milyon kapag mag-file tayo ng case. Kasi sisingilin natin si Sanofi. Then people are expecting na meron silang makukuha. But the problem is, hindi yun ang katotohanan. So, my take on that, our conscience is clean. Alam naming ginugulo lang ang siyensya ng mga anti-vaccine. But we have to tell them that vaccination still saves lives and we as doctors will do our tasks.
And based sa pinagdaanan nyo po, do you think that government officials, particularly those working in the health sector, should have some sort of shield or program to help you defend yourself pagka nagkaroon ng case relating to issues?
Definitely. That's why when I was in the Department of Health, buti na lang no, wala pa itong Dengvaxia. When I was in the Department of Health, I was surprised with doctors and directors facing cases right and left. These were the members of the Bids and Awards Committee, yung mga nasa procurement. Nakakatakot, sangkatutak na mga kaso ang hinaharap nila kasi ibang mga suppliers, hindi na companies, kundi puro na mga abogado. So I put up a legal fund to protect them. But then ito nga ngayon, it's really needed kasi they're just doing their job. Kaya tuloy, walang stock ng mga gamot, walang stock ng bakuna, kawawa ang taong bayan because takot nang gumalaw yung doktor, makakasuhan ulit.
Yeah, and sarili pa nilang gastos. And what's your take on the recent Supreme Court decision that dismissed the impeachment complaint against VP Sara? I mean, called it one as violating the one-year bar rule and saying that it's void ab initio.
Well, we respect the Supreme Court. No, I'm not a lawyer, so probably they know better on the technicalities. But again, accountability is still part of what is being discussed. So I await the decision of majority of the members of Congress, and we await the pulse of the people. Kasi for all we know, it was done by somebody else, at baka hindi rin nakita ni Vice President na meron palang gumawa ng ganun sa opisina niya.
Were you really a significant figure in gathering the signatures of other members of Congress in the fourth impeachment complaint?
No, because I'm not the Secretary General. I believe ito kuryente. Akala kasi nila marami yan yung resolutions, ordinance, magpapapirma ka for support, iniikot mo. But if in an impeachment complaint, you go to the Secretary General, you sign, I'm not sure if it's 7 or 10 voluminous copies, mag-a-appear ka, videohan ka habang pumipirma, ganun yun. So how can I carry all those papers?
So nadawit ka talaga before, like you were aware of that na sinasabi, isa ka sa mga
I think
nag-gather.
somebody kasi said it's Kong J. And Congressman Pulong Duterte knows me as Kong J, parang nagkasama rin kami. It's actually Kong JJ, but he was not convincing people. He was just laying the facts mentioned in the impeachment complaint na meron na ditong pang-apat, ano bang gagawin natin. It was a party caucus. It was not a Congress caucus. Kaming mga magkakapartido sa Partido Lakas. Kasi maingay na nung sinasabi ng mga nagpa-file and people were saying, naku, mag-e-election. How do we do it? How do we hear this?
But thank you so much, Congresswoman Janette. We ran out of time. Dapat meron pa kaming personal profile questions about you. Siguro next time po we'll have you back so that we can do a more personal interview as well. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dapat magpapayat na ako pagbalik ko.
Ay, naku, payat na po kayo. Thank you so much and congratulations on being Deputy Speaker for the 20th Congress.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Janette Garin's journey shows how experience, resilience, and conviction can shape meaningful public service. From navigating crisis to crafting policies, she has remained firm in her commitment to health and governance. In a world quick to judge, hers is a story of standing her ground and staying the course. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations that inspire and give insights on personalities and issues. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Let's all have a productive week ahead.